All right, so last week we talked about getting more traffic. We talked about getting more leads. But without the right systems in place, this is where we will often see teams get frustrated and numbers start to decline, conversion rates start to go down because you're getting more traffic, more leads coming in, but if you don't have that system in place, leads get lost, follow-up gets worse, and conversion rates just go down.
And again, like we talked about last week, we're looking for micro improvements at each one of these levels, right? As we talked about, from the book Atomic Habits, what we want to look for is every single thing that happens throughout the funnel. Where can we make minor improvements to create massive change? And so, once you've got leads coming in, how do you turn more of those leads into tours? Right. And so, one of the very first things, and this should seem obvious, but I can tell you again, after mystery shopping 2,500 senior living community websites last fall, it's not obvious to a lot of people because 48% never responded to us. And what I mean by response was text message, email, phone call. We didn't get anything from 48%. And the average follow-up time was like 78 hours over 3 days.
Yep.
And so, when someone downloads your pricing or they download an ebook, if you're doing this manually, that's not going to be very high on your priority list to follow up with them. And so, how can you reach out to them? Well, very simple. Use an automation tool like the Move-In Machine. There's other ones out there, by the way, but ours works really well. And have that speed to lead component to where every time someone downloads your pricing, and I use that as the example because that's the one that converts the highest, send them a text message, right? Like 2 minutes. Yep. Hey, Luke, this is Dallas. Just saw you downloaded the pricing guide for our community. Wanted to see what was going on with your family. I mean, we help families like yours all the time, find the right place for mom or dad or, your loved one. Do you have time? Do you have some time to chat? And then a lot of times the people that are interested, they're going to reply to that first message, right? Because you caught them. They might even still be on your website and they're ready to talk. Or they say, hey, I'm just looking right now. Cool. No problem. I'll touch base with you in a couple of weeks or something. You figure out that system that you want for your community. But then when they don't, okay, well, let's follow up with them again in a couple hours. Hey, Luke, just seeing if you saw my text. If they don't reply to that one, wait a couple days, send them another one. Hey, just want to check in. Saw you downloaded our pricing.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that's the only time I would use the just want to check in. Once you've had conversations, you're going to want to have set things that are next. But when you're just getting the relationship started, it's fine. But you want to be fast and you want to be frequent. To turn more of those leads into a book tour, right? And the messaging is important. The frequency is important. That cadence, and we've really built a really good system that has been tested. I would also tell you, if you have a thought or you have an idea, test it, right? But you have to have some sort of system in place. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what you test. You're never going to be able to manage it. But those are, as far as your web leads and your new leads coming in, you have to have that system in place in today's competitive environment. There really is no other option there. You have to have that in place. If I'll give this one caveat, if you have a high enough volume of traffic on your website. Now, if you're still focusing at the very top and you've only got 30, 40, 50 people a month coming to your website, you probably don't need a whole lot of automation yet. But I would say that if you've got the plan in place that you're going to increase your traffic, go ahead and start getting your automation in place at the same time so that you can work it out on a smaller scale. And by the time your traffic increases, you've got that system in place already and it's working. And don't be like the Texas Department of Transportation and thousands of homes are getting built and you're going to wait until 100,000 people live out there to add lanes to the highway, right? Go ahead and increase that bandwidth while you're increasing the traffic. Sorry, I still have PTSD from growing up in the
Yeah,
Houston
was that
area.
a personal experience
That
or
was
just a
that was a
random
personal
thing?
injection there. Yeah. Like the whole world was growing in Northwest Houston, and they waited till, 1 million people lived in Cypress, and then they decided to expand 290. It's a good time. Anyway, for those of you not in Houston, I apologize for that digression. It's just the image that came into my head. So that's as far as the new leads. Luke, you were going to talk about, we talked about earlier, the cold leads as well.
Yeah. And before I touch on that, I'll say, I mean, there's even things, when we talk about improving things 1%. So if you take, speed to lead, we've messed with, do you get a better response rate if you reply within 2 minutes, or if you have that automated personalized message sent out, I mean, as fast as technology will go? And you can start to kind of measure that and see, does it matter if we wait 2 or 3 minutes to make it feel like a human, or if I get a text message back in 15 seconds after I download pricing, what kind of response do you see from that? Or with the messaging, we've messed around with, including GIFs of, the person who's giving the tour, or video links. Which one is better? Do people click on the video link, or do they just assume it's suspicious and they're not going to click on a new link? And so you kind of get into those details, and to me, that's when it gets really fun to kind of get into some of that and go, okay, we've had this kind of response to this kind of response to that, and we've even tested in our messaging, purposefully making a grammar or spelling mistake and then sending another automated message to fix it. Because what feels more human than to receive a text where someone, put in a spelling mistake, but then, half a second later or whatever, they reply with an asterisk and then with the corrected word. I mean, we've tested that, because that feels human. No one's going to see that and then think, oh, that's a robot, because robots, they don't do that. They spell everything perfectly and have perfect grammar. But humans mess up. And so, I mean, you start to get into that, and that's just where, little 1% changes can really have a big impact.
100%.
So following up with cold leads, the 1%, I think there is Dallas had mentioned this before, is I think that the calling cold leads, it's easy just to say, hey, I'm calling just to check in. But most often cold leads don't really want to hear you call to check in. If you say just calling to check in, they're going to say, no, thanks, go ahead and check out. I'm not that interested. But when you call a cold lead, have some kind of event in mind that you're going to invite them to. It could be some kind of event at your community, or you can just say, hey, we have an open house for tours on Fridays. And so just have a reason to call them. And that 1% change can make a really big impact.
This is where events come into play as well. When you do have an event every month, that gives you a reason to reach out to these cold leads every month.
Yep.
I mean, I see a lot of times people will, when they're planning an event, they don't do an event because they think, oh, I've got to do this mail out. I've got to do a direct mail piece. It's going to be expensive. We're not going to get a lot of people. But meanwhile, they've got dozens or hundreds or, a lot of people in their database that they're sitting on a gold mine. And it might be somebody that they're hesitant to come take a tour. But if you say, hey, we're having an antique car show, or hey, we're having a barbecue cook-off, or we're having a watermelon seed spitting competition, or whatever, right? Like there's different things you can do that are fun, and it will get them to the community and get a taste of what it's like from a fun standpoint. So again, just being proactive. And again, this is not, you're not going to get a 30% increase in this, but if you get 5% more or 2% more of your cold leads coming in every month, it's a consistent effort that is going to lead to really, really big improvements.
Yeah.
And results, right? Little changes that lead to massive results.
So you get more leads to turn into tours. And so now that obviously leads to, okay, how do I get, as many of these tours as possible to actually show up. And we see this more of an issue on the hiring side of things, but we do see this. I mean, sometimes on the marketing side, someone schedules a tour and then they'll reschedule, or they'll cancel just because it's not maybe that important to them right now, depending on the level of care. So how do we get more of these people to show up?
Well, I think this is a bigger issue for web leads as well. Between those web leads and the cold leads, right? If you've got web leads, a lot of times, again, they may say, yes, I want to book a tour, but then they talk to a sibling who kind of makes them doubt it, or they start talking to mom who makes them doubt it. And, things can happen there. And so that's why immediately after the tour is booked, we want to start sending them positive reinforcement that, hey, you're making the right decision. Here's a video of Miss Betty. She's been here for 2 years. She loves it here. Here's what she has to say. And you let her sell it. Right.
Yep.
Or here's Bob. Right. Bob's been here for 6 months now. Just has become a huge part of our community. We love him. He's in the movie night every week. He plays bingo every day, or whatever it is that you're going to use to sell your community. We had one partner that they had a former chef that was living with them, and so the dining director let him kind of get involved, and so I keep telling them, you need to make a video of him saying, hey, come over for dinner. I've been chef for 40 years and blah, 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 whatever it is. But we all know that there's going to be negative voices in their heads after they start thinking about this, whether it's their mom or it's their sibling or whatever it is. So reinforcing the positives helps to counter that. And so let's say right now you get 80% showing up. Well, if we can get that to 90%, that's another 10%. That's another 2 or 3 tours a month for most people. That should result in another move-in every month or every other month, right? It's these.
Yep.
Hate to repeat it again, micro adjustments that lead to major results.
Yeah,
massive results.
So even think about, let's say someone goes on your site and they book a tour. Maybe they get an initial automated email confirmation, but then maybe 30 minutes later, they get another email and it's automated, but it's personalized. It feels like a human wrote it. Maybe it says, hi, Dallas, I saw that you booked a tour. My name is Luke. I'm the sales and marketing person here at ABC Community. I wanted to share this testimonial video of Betty. She's a resident. And then, so they get that email. Then when you have a discovery call, you've just created another topic to talk about on your discovery call. Hey, did you get that email I sent? It was a testimonial video with Betty, and maybe they got it, maybe they didn't. And so then you've got more reason to call them for discovery. You've got more topics of conversation to talk to them about. So even those 1% changes you make in one area then can impact something else in a positive way. That's that's also in your process. So it's interesting how you start looking at these 1% changes and you don't realize how they're going to impact other steps in your process. So you get more tours to show up, but how do you get more of those tours to turn into move-ins?
Well, and before we do that, I'm just going to update. So last week I showed everyone the spreadsheet that shows what do these incremental increases really look like in actual numbers. So I'm going to share my screen again here and move my video back over here so I can see you, Luke. So last time, with an average monthly rent of $4,500, if all we did was increase traffic by 10% and get 2 more percentage points to turn into leads, those 2 things would result in 38% growth, right? Nearly 40%, just those 2 things. And so now if let's say that instead of only getting 13% of leads to turn into an appointment, we're going to add another 5%, right? So if we get another 5% of the leads to turn into an appointment, now we're at a 92% growth. We've almost doubled our results by increasing traffic to the website by 10%, converting 2% more into a lead, and converting 5% more of those leads into a tour, right? Those three changes were at 92% growth.
Yeah,
And let's
and
say that
that's with a 17% close rate.
And a 17% close rate.
Yep.
So let's say we've just talked about getting more people to show up for the tours. So instead of 86% showing up, let's say we get that up to 90% showing up. Now we're over 100%. Now we've doubled. We're at 101%. For those of you that are listening to the podcast and can't see this, we are going to share this link, by the way, so you can put your numbers in and play with it and change it. But we're at 100%, 101% growth by making 4 minor changes: 10% growth in traffic, 2% increase in leads, 5% increase in tours, 4% increase in the show up rate, the people that show up for tours. And that's still at a 17% close ratio.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. How can we improve the close ratio? Right.
Yep.
And then we'll adjust this spreadsheet with those numbers and see what it does.
So, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is when you're getting more tours to turn into move-ins. The biggest thing for me would just be, what does your follow-up look like after the tour? Are you giving clear next steps? You've given the tour and then you sit down and you're talking about next steps. Is it just kind of like, well, just let me know? Or do you have a clear plan of action of, hey, is it okay if I follow up here? I'm going to call and check in here. And you've got certain steps that you always follow in your follow-up process. So I would look at, what does my follow-up look like after the tour? Because chances are,
is it intentional, right? Is the follow-up intentional?
Right. Chances are you can follow up more than you currently do. And you can follow up probably faster than you currently follow up.
And better. Here's the deal. Like I mentioned a while ago, the whole, hey, just checking in. That's a terrible follow-up. Doesn't matter what business you're in. That's a terrible follow-up. What you want to do is prepare the follow-up in your current conversation, right? So, on the tour, hey, what I'd love to do is set up a time for me to come have an in-home visit, right? Is there a good time for me to come by and just, see what life is like for you right now, right? And not many people do that, by the way, because they're busy chasing web leads, following up, that they don't have time. But once you put that automation system in, you have time to do things like this. Or you say, hey, you know what? I'd love for you to come by. We've got an event next Friday. I'd love to have you come by there. Can I go in RSVP for you? And I'll call you on Wednesday and just remind you, right? And you get them in. Hey, I know we've talked about this certain medical condition that your mom or dad is struggling with. Let me visit with our director of nursing and kind of get her feedback. And then why don't we set up a time to meet with her on Tuesday next week? Does that sound good? Whatever it is, tee it up as to why the next conversation needs to happen for their benefit. That's the key. Why should the next thing happen for their benefit, not your benefit as the salesperson? And I actually would back up a step too, as far as increasing that close ratio, and talk about a little bit about having purpose on the tour. And that starts before the tour, right?
Yeah.
So how are you customizing the tour? Julie Podowitz, we've done a lot of work with her for some of our partners. And one of my favorite things she always tells them is, when you're on the discovery call before the tour, find out what kind of music they like, find out what their favorite movie is. And then when they come into the community, have that music played in the lobby. So if they say, hey, I love Johnny Cash. Hey, great. Let's just have 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before, whatever. Somebody turn on Johnny Cash on an Alexa in the office. If you've got TVs playing, put that movie on, right? Like, make it personal for them. So they're walking around, they're like, oh, they're watching Tombstone. Great. I can quote every line, or probably a John Wayne movie. I don't know. But the point being, prepare to customize the tour in advance. And again, maybe it's 5% more, maybe it's 10% more, 2% more. We're not talking about huge increases, but these little things will make a difference.
Yeah. Just because you play Johnny Cash doesn't mean you're going to see a 200% improvement in your close ratio, but it could mean 2%, could mean 3%, and that's huge.
Well, and let's think about let's put some numbers to it. Let's say that you're giving, for round numbers, let's say you're giving 1 tour a day on average, so 30 tours. If you make 30 people feel at home the minute they walk in the door, that's what the music's about, by the way. It's not about the music. It's about something when they walk in that door feels like home, because they might have Johnny Cash playing in their house or in their car or whatever. And so, oh man, okay, it's the sensory, right? It's that they hear it, and that anytime you can impact the senses, it's going to help your cells. So let's pull the spreadsheet back up here too. We're going to play with this a little bit. Anything else you want to talk about on that though, by the way, before I pull this up?
You said the famous branding phrase that every senior living community likes to pull in or to pull out, and that's, you know, a place that feels like home. If you have to say that, you know, chances are it doesn't really feel that way. But it's you're exactly right. It's the actions you're taking. It's not like I'm not going to tell you this feels like home and then you believe that, but it's like, what are you doing to make it feel like home?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm playing the music, I'm doing
Absolutely.
the movies, I'm serving, I'm giving them their favorite pie after move in or whatever.
Great point. Great point. Yeah. I mean, instead of saying it feels like home, make it feel like home.
Yeah.
But you can't do that without the discovery call and asking the questions to find out what it looks like at home. Right. And also maybe you want to do an in-home visit before they come. And then guess what? You can just scan the room and figure out what looks like home.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So the other thing too, as far as the follow-up system is, what does your referral process look like after they move in? Right. So we can talk about that here in a minute, but I want to play with the spreadsheet before we get into that. Let me share my screen again. Again, if you want, you can click on the link to watch this on YouTube so you can actually see this. We are going to share this spreadsheet in the information here about the podcast so you can play with this yourself. But okay, so far we've had a 10% increase in traffic, a 2% increase in leads, a 5% increase in booked appointments, a 4% increase in the show up rate. And let's say that we increase our close percentage by just 5 points. Now it's 162% growth. I mean, we're approaching tripling the growth.
Yep.
And this, by the way, this is still only at 22%. So let's say we get this up to 25%. Now we're at 198%. We've tripled the growth.
Yep.
Also, when you do play with this, I've also built out the KPI values over here. So as you change this, it will show you what the different things are worth. So in this current scenario, every visitor to the website is worth $17. So when you're doing your projections and you're saying, hey, you know, how much should we spend on PPC? The goal is to get it under $17, right? So if you can get a pay-per-click down at $10, that's a big win. Because what we know is that a visitor to your community with these numbers and this close ratio of 25% is worth $1,100.
Yeah. So maybe you need to, you know, spend $3 to rent their movie. Worth it.
Yeah. Or, you know, buy the DVD.
Buy the DVD. Yeah.
Whatever. But you can do things like this, you know, or when you're planning an event, how much money can we spend on an event? Well, when you track these KPIs like this gives you a much more realistic number to take to the decision makers and say, hey, we want to spend $10,000 on this event. And they're going to be like, whoa, what? Well, look, we know that every tour we get's worth $1,100. We want to get 40 people here. So it's going to be $400 per person. And, you know, we think we can get 10 move-ins out of it. Cool. You know, you justify the numbers with the data instead of just saying, hey, I want to do this big event. It's going to cost me. And let's be honest, no one's doing $10,000 events, but I use that larger number as an example of, I could justify if I was running a community with these numbers, I could justify a $10,000 event based on this data, but most people don't have this data.
Yep.
So again, micro improvements. I mean, the biggest improvement was 10% on traffic, which, by the way, I think you could actually get at least probably a 30% increase in traffic pretty easily. Right now we're at 252% growth. I also think you could probably get this more like 4%. Now we're at 323. Booked appointments, we're at 18% of the leads. Let's say we get to 20%. Now we're at 371% growth. I think completed appointments, I think you could probably be at 95%. Now we're at 400% growth.
Yep.
And if you get to 30% close ratio with those numbers, you're at 498% growth.
Right. And this is assuming that you have a system in place that can
Yep.
handle all of this increase, that can handle the increase in leads, and that can handle the increase in booked appointments, that can handle the increase in follow-up after tours. If you don't have that system in place, you won't see numbers like this.
Well, and if you don't have those systems in place, you can't even calculate these numbers.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So having the system in place is the first step, so that then you can break down each step in the funnel and know exactly that, okay, now with these numbers, every visitor to the website is worth $30. Every lead is worth $250. Every booked appointment is worth $1,260. Every tour that shows up is worth over $1,300. Right. So have these numbers. Oh, and by the way, so once you get all that going, and then you want to increase rent by, let's say, 2%, you added another, what'd that do? Add
10%, 12%.
So increasing 2% rent increase your growth by 12% because of all these other changes. So it's not a flat line of 2% equals 2%. It's that 2% equals 12% now. Right. So again, I'm a big numbers guy. I love playing with the spreadsheet. We're going to share this with you. Luke, you're in charge of that.
I'll put it in the show notes
where people can play with it. But I guess probably what you'll need to do is just download it or make a copy so you can have your copy of this spreadsheet, and then you can edit it and play with it to your heart's content. I'd love to hop on a call with you and help you analyze these numbers if you want, because this is my wheelhouse right here. I love doing this.
Yeah. So the last thing we have is, what does your follow-up system look like after you lose a sale? So maybe someone comes in and tours, it goes great, but for one reason or another, they move to a different community, they stay home.
They stay at home. Yeah, stay at home is the big one, right?
Right. And so you lose that sale. So what does your follow-up system look like? Because I would say, and I'm sure you would agree with this, the overwhelming majority of people probably don't have a follow-up system in place for people that stay home or for people that move to a different community.
Well, definitely, I don't know very many at all that have a follow-up system when they move to a different community, but I think probably what the follow-up system looks like for most people when they say, oh, we're just not ready yet, we're going to stay at home, or some version of that, is every once in a while they're desperate for tours, or they're desperate for someone to come in the door. And so they do the old, hey, Luke, this is Dallas, just checking in. Right.
Yep.
Where when you have the system in place, like we talked about a while ago with your cold leads, all these no's just mean that they're not ready yet. Right. So invite them to events, check in on them on their birthday, all that kind of thing. But it's systematized.
Yep.
Because again, let's say that you average 30 tours a month and you close 9 of them. That's 21 people that are interested in your community. So in a year, there's over 200 people that came for a tour, and we need to get them in once a month for events. We need to hit them up on their birthdays. We need to, send them gifts, send them flowers on their birthday. And all of that can be part of that budget. Again, when hey, look, Mr. Boss Man, we know that we can spend $1,300 on a tour. That may not be on the tour. It may be that, you send them a $50 bouquet of flowers the next week. Hey, thanks so much for coming by. I hope you're having a great day. Things like that.
Yep.
So when you have these numbers, though, you can have those kind of conversations and be way more persuasive with the decision makers. When you're just saying, hey, I think we should do this, and it's just your gut and your opinion, it's way harder to get those dollars. But when you have the systems and you can say with zero doubt, hey, look, we know this person is worth $1,300 as a tour. They've already made 2 visits. You know, we're going to send them $100 bouquet of flowers, right?
Yep.
Whatever you want to do. Or $100 gift card to their favorite restaurant.
Yep.
Whatever it is, the data will arm you with the information you need to make it happen and make your job easier, increase the sales, get your bonuses, have a community full of happy residents, increase the revenue so you can hire the staff you need to adequately serve those residents. All that, it's all so connected, right?
Yep.
But it starts with having the system, knowing your data at every step.
And before we close, I do want to, and I'll throw this out there. Do you think that we should let people know about our new offer for their website? So, I mean, this is a guaranteed way to test and see, you know, can we get some percentage increase off of our website? Do you want to tell them about that?
Yeah, so you can try these tools out on your website for 90 days for free, right? And if you don't need the follow-up system, after that, it's less than $100 a month, right? It's gonna convert more of your traffic, and you know, if you can do the follow-up yourself, great. But you know, try it out for 90 days for free. You'll see, and you know, we were joking that most communities probably would only need 90 minutes to realize how much of a difference this makes. I mean, we went live a couple weeks ago with a new partner, and after one day, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like in about 24 hours, we had as many leads as they had gotten the whole month before, something like that, right? Like there's people on your website that want to talk to you, but the website does not make it easy for them to talk to you, and our tools will help you with that. And again, try them out for 90 days for free. We'd love to help you out with those. And again, it's not some big monthly commitment after that. You can have it for less than $100 a month after the 90-day trial. So this is going to be the biggest no-brainer of the year for you. If you're looking to put this kind of system in place, it will deliver more leads, it will deliver more tours, and it will give you some data that you can really work with.